Welcome to the Greatness Garage Podcast, the place where small businesses get big answers. I'm your host, Brad Borkhuis, founder of Epitome Coaching and Consulting, and this is the Greatness Garage. Welcome, everyone, back to the Greatness Garage. We're so happy to have you here with us. Ricardo is joining us in the garage, and he is a wealth of knowledge and experience, a business coach, a leadership coach, has done so many things in the coaching space, and you guys are going to be knocked your socks off, so enjoy this. Ricardo, introduce yourself to the Greatness Garage.
Hello, everybody. Ricardo Monardez. I am I have a little bit of a weird story. I became a coach by accident, not because I planned on it. I'll tell you more about that later on, but I'm originally from Chile, born and raised there. And I was just sharing with Brad earlier, I'm an architect by formal training. So the transition from being an architect to being a coach and a business owner at that is kind of a long story, but we'll get to that later. Currently, my company is Taligens, as you can see up here. So we are a cultural transformation company, and we focus on organizational culture and everything that includes from coaching and leadership development to process redesign, for example, and change management, everything in between. So happy to be here, and thanks, Brad, for the invitation.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the stories that you've got to have from the cultural side and the multicultural background that you bring as well as what you've experienced here. I just it's I work with Ricardo on a group that we share ideas on, and he's just amazing insight. So you guys are gonna enjoy this. So all right, let's jump in the first segment. The first segment is I wish I would have, right? I wish I would have done. I wish I would have not have done. I wish I would have experienced it differently. Ricardo, take it away.
All right. Well, let me start with this. I've been in business for 30 plus years since I finished architecture school back in the day. Um, and I've always had, or I think I've had, more of an entrepreneurial attitude towards my work, even though I was not an entrepreneur at the very
Hmm.
beginning of my career. I became an entrepreneur 10 years ago or so when I left my previous job and started doing individual consulting. But I wished I would have known back then something that I learned very quickly, which is starting your own business in an environment where you don't know anybody is really
Mm.
tough, right? Let me explain what that means. As I said, I grew up in Chile, left Chile 32 years ago, went to live and work in Mexico, which I did for 9 years. I was in Mexico for 9 years. Then I came to the US, but of all places, to Knoxville, Tennessee. I was there
Hmm.
for 2 years. Then I came here to Houston, and all of that time I was a consultant working for a consulting company. And then I left that consulting company. I got hired by a manufacturing company as director of OD, organizational development, based in Barcelona, in Spain. So I left Houston for Barcelona. And then I came back to Houston. The company was headquartered in Cleveland, Ohio. So that meant that even though I lived here, I was traveling 3, sometimes 4 weeks out of the month, and I didn't really get to spend much time here. So when I left the company and decided to go solo, I realized I don't know anybody here. So what do I do?
Wow. Yeah.
Right? So
Very
then
interesting. Yeah.
I discovered networking, and I realized I had to do that because I had not done that before. All of my previous time, the previous 20 plus years, I had been an employee
Yeah.
of a company. So I never had to network. I did build relationships with my clients and all that, but I never had to network. Uh, that's what I started doing here when I
Very
first
interesting.
left my previous job. So I discovered that to get to build relationships with people, you really need to put yourself out there. Uh, Go to these networking events. I started trying different things, different groups. I did search online, ATD, NSA, different groups of ICF, etc. different groups of people, professionals. I ended up landing at the Houston Organizational Development Network because that was closer to my background. So much so that I have been the president of the organization for the last few years.
There you go.
And but what I wished I knew before I decided to go solo was that I had to build networks
Yeah.
before. I had
Yeah.
to at least have a sense of what my market was going to be, what my ideal clients would be, and where to go find them
Yeah.
before I took this step, not after, because that slowed down my process quite a bit.
Well, absolutely. And you know what? I think a lot of us follow our passion, right? So our passion plunges us into a field or into something. We're also we go, just like you're saying, shit. Like now I don't have that, I'm in deep waters real fast. So let me say this. So you experience this guy, I wish I would have had a network, a nice parachute that carried me into coaching, that had all these things. I just have to make all the calls to my favorite friends and I'll have a full staff, right? Or a full list. What did you find got you through? Like once you said, okay, I'm in deep water and I don't have a raft, what got you swim? What got you to the point to where you could get back up and really create the business?
Partners.
Ah,
I discovered partnerships. I think I've been very lucky that way. And that I was saying some of that for later in the conversation, but what I discovered is I didn't want to work alone. I didn't
mm-hmm,
want to
mm-hmm.
have just a one man practice. I wanted to build an organization and work with others, collaborate. So not just because of the scope or the footprint, but also because of skills, uh,
Yep.
complementary skills, right? To build a larger, bigger offer than just what I could do myself.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So very early on, as after I left my previous job and started doing going solo, I met different people and I decided to partner with a couple of them. Some worked out, some didn't, but I've
Yep.
been very lucky to have now a group of partners that are really supportive and we complement each other very well. We all
Yep.
do slightly different things, so we can all follow our passions, as you said,
Yep.
and do what we really, really love and cover each other's backs too when times are tough. So.
That's a great thing. And it's whether it's in your business reaching out to another complementary business or something like that, or even within your own business. If you look at, for example, an EOS style modeling where you have an integrator and you have the creative, the visionary, when you're looking for a partnership in your business where they're going to support you, whether they're both where the partner is inside your business or where the partner is outside collaborating with your business. What are some of the things that you found are the key elements that make a good partner for you?
Mostly in my line of business in particular, or our line of business in particular, I think you need to look for people who do care about
Mm,
each other,
yeah,
right? People who, number one, people who are not like scheming to squeeze every
yeah,
ounce of value for themselves out of any
yeah,
transaction. People who are not transactional, bottom
yeah.
line, right?
Well said.
Um, you want to find people who are looking at the long-term relationship, not just a year or two or a contract or two,
Yeah, yeah,
that sort of thing. And the way I put it to my partners right now is I want to work with people I can call my friends.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I can't call you my friend, I wouldn't call you my partner either.
yeah,
You could be an associate, but not a
yeah.
partner.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's a great thing. And I like how you said it too. It's that transition from transactional, which means I'm in it for the dollar bills that it can kick back to me, and that's it, right? Versus this one where you're willing to and wanting to nurture something more, not just within each other, but within what we can collaborate, what we can bring. That kind of whole is greater than the parts. The some of the parts. I think you're right, and bringing with it too. Um, there's almost an honor or a respect that comes here that we are building something together versus I'm getting out of it what I can get out of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's a great point. Yeah.
now that I come to think about it, there is also a degree of admiration for the other person as well because
Hmm.
of that complementarity of skills. So they do things that I don't know how to do, and I do things they
Hmm.
don't know how to do, and there has to be some sort of admiration for that kind of value that we each bring to
Ooh.
the table.
Everybody, I want you to hear this because that was deep, and I don't know if you caught this. So the admiration that you have for the other side, right? Here's why that's so important. If you've got admiration for your partner, you're not going to step over that line into their space, mucky muck with that area, and vice versa. They're not going to come and cloud that. The best partnerships you see, right, Ricardo, are ones that run together. They've got their roles, they've got their clear identities. They serve really well in their space, and they'll even take it up right to the line and say, "That's great, awesome. Here's my partner," because they do that part and I'll take that. We'll connect you. We'll hold you together in that transition, and then they've got you. And that takes a great deal. We've said it so well. Admiration that you respect and admire the other side with their talents of who they are, the way that they will take care of the client so much that you are willing to transition that person. And so that even happens within a business that you're willing to take a customer and transition them to another employee because you have so much admiration for that other employee. That's pretty cool. I love the way you said that. That's powerful. Yeah.
I think you articulated it much better than I could, but I
I
think we
get to
share
sit in the
the
listening
sentiment.
position here. That's the best part of this interview, is right? I get to sit in this listening position, so it's really good, you know. So, oh, I love it. So, when we when we look at that, development and building that, and so building it through those partnerships, and so what made you realize as you kind of stepped out, it's kind of that thing you step off the plane and realize going, oh, whew, it's pretty barren here. I gotta figure something out. Um, what do you think made you kind of figure that partnership thing out? What kind of tripped up there and said, that's what I need.
Well, as I said, it was a combination of elements. One, being alone in a city that I really didn't know.
Yeah.
Uh, Two, not having done this before. And three, meeting people who wanted to build something similar to what I wanted to build. So we
Mm-hmm.
shared the dream. And lastly, that admiration that I just mentioned. So I
Yeah.
really got to love what they did, my partners did or do, still do,
Yeah.
um, as a complement to what I do, not competitive to what I do,
Yeah.
right? So we're not
Yeah. Yeah.
competing for our clients' attention, for example. We're not competing for time in front of decision makers and things like that. We
Yeah.
bring each other to conversations when we think we need the support or we could add value to those conversations and things like that.
Yeah, bring that expert. But yeah, like I heard, so like that's the thing too. Yeah, so you got off the plane and you recognize, hey, I need to get out and join some groups. And I think that's such a great thing that action based, that initial action of going saying, hey, signing up, becoming involved, becoming engaged, bred all the other stuff that all the fruits that came from the rest of that vine, huh? So that's
That's
awesome.
right. And actually, I attended one such event last night with ATD and HOD, and we did a joint event. We do joint events once a year or twice a year. So last night, our joint event took place, and I met a number of great people there, great professionals. And one of them is a person who works for a large oil and gas company, and she was saying, "Hey, what do I need to do to become an entrepreneur myself?" So
Hmm.
the one thing I said to her is, "Well, you are in a corporate role now. Do you work with consultants? Do you hire consultants every so often?" Yeah, yeah, I do. Well, let me suggest that while you're still
Hmm.
inside, you talk to those consultants and learn from how they're trying to sell to you.
Yeah.
Because when the tables turn, you're going to have to do that, right?
Absolutely, right? Yeah, learn the craft on the other side while you're there. That's very cool. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and again, I wished I knew that when I started myself or before I started myself, because I did
Yeah.
hire consultants, but I wasn't paying attention then.
But I think that's a great, I love that insight of any kind of sales, right? Of really, because we're in so many opportunities that we're on the other side of sales. Notice the things that resonate with you because I think the best. job we can do in sales, and if we're going to be in any business, we're going to be in some form of sales, right? Whether it's to employees or to the customer or whatever, is that the sales type that feels authentic to you, that you
Mhm.
can feel like this is the way I want to deliver. And so when you hear it, trap it, grab that note and put it down, going, this is how I would want to emulate or mirror or match up like that. Yeah. So very cool,
Right.
very cool, awesome.
Right.
Well, that's what a great thing to learn on that first lesson. So thank you so much. So now we're going to second segment here, and I love this one. It's always a good chuckle, good humor here. So I wish I would have. Right? Oh, that was the first one. Excuse me. Sorry. Let's translate. Let's go. You ain't gonna believe this, right? This is the story. This is one we get to share. That is always kind of a little bit of wowness, and I'm always excited to hear what you all bring to it. So, Ricardo, let us hear. You ain't gonna believe this.
Well, I have a few stories. I don't know which one might be
Oh, let's run them all until the
better, but
time runs out.
well, let me start with this. Number one, as I said, I was born and raised in Chile. Chile is a Spanish-speaking country, and then I went to Mexico, which is another speaking Spanish country, and I never really needed English
Mm-hmm.
until 9/11. Why
Oh.
9/11? Because 9/11 was the week, 9/10 was 9/11 was a Tuesday. 9/10, which was a Monday, was my first day on the job in Knoxville, Tennessee. Um, and I
Wow.
didn't know any English, or very little, actually.
Yeah.
Um, so the client was based in Knoxville, Tennessee, but actually I was visiting some of their facilities in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I found myself stranded there for 2 weeks with very limited English, trying to find my way around the new job, the new project, the new
Oh.
client, with a team of people that I hadn't met before. Um, so it was very weird for me being it wasn't my first time in the US, but it was my first time working in the US,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fully in English.
Yeah.
Because of my limited English, I couldn't fully understand when I heard a plane crashed on the Twin Towers. What kind of plane? What are you talking
Yeah.
about? How can a
Yeah.
plane crash against the towers? So I was trying to make sense in Spanish, translating from English
Right.
little by little, piecing the whole story together as I watched the news and talked to people,
Yeah.
trying to
Well, I
understand all that.
I can imagine because like as we are trying to piece like it's unimaginable to when I hear it from English to English, and I remember when we were it heard that something, and you're like, I'm sorry, like what? I can only imagine as another language trying to translate that and understand. Maybe I like you said, not even be able to trust your own understanding of the language. Maybe I heard this wrong. Like maybe I'm
Exactly.
making I'm using the wrong words for this or yeah, wow,
And at the time, I was working, as I said, in Minneapolis with a team of people who went from Knoxville to Minneapolis. Part of that team was the guy that later on became the CEO of that company, um,
wow.
the client company. And he was trying to explain to me what had happened, and I couldn't really picture the whole thing. So I was doubly lost
Well,
in that
yeah.
environment, right?
And the part that also like so you talk about learning by immersion.
Yeah, exactly.
You got that. Well, and then the part that when you said that, what also showed up for me, and I love one thing I do love about these interviews is that it brings um, my level of awareness to levels that it wasn't before. Because in a consultant position, like you said earlier, 3 to 4 weeks, a month, you're flying, you're traveling, you're moving. Like in post 9/11, what was that like? How did you, I mean, that's got to be so, like, that had to have been a unique, almost surreal experience because, post 9/11, I didn't fly much. And so it wasn't really, something that I was experiencing. What did the daily look like that? I mean, how did that change in the weeks and months after that?
Well, not the first thing that you notice, because that happened on the week of 9/11, so from Monday through Friday, I was supposed to go back to Mexico City. I was living in Mexico City at the time, from Minneapolis all the way back to Mexico City and back on
Yeah.
Monday, the next Monday. But because all planes were grounded, flights
Mm-hmm.
canceled, I had to stay in Minneapolis for a few weeks. So I didn't travel for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't exactly recall how long that was,
Yeah.
but I wasn't prepared for that. I didn't have clothes for that long a time.
Yeah.
And Minneapolis was significantly cooler than Mexico City was. So I
Yeah.
didn't have the proper clothes for that.
Yeah.
So I had to go shopping. So one of the guys in the team was kind enough, a senior person. He was already retired, but he was part of this project team, and he was kind enough to take me to. I learned that's when I learned about the Mall of America,
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
and the biggest mall in the world. I think it is
At the time it was.
still to
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
day.
Actually, like
Um,
there's one in Dubai that's supposed to be the largest now. It's supposed to be pretty
oh,
impressive.
okay.
But yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they still call it the largest mall in the world.
Yep.
One of my family members was there a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Um, but the point is, I had to buy clothes and I had to get settled in a hotel room that I actually the other issue was this is kind of a side note, but my credit card didn't have enough of a credit line
Oh,
for the
right.
hotel because I had to stay there for longer, much longer than I
Yeah.
had planned for. So I had to work out something with the company office in New York and all that. So they had to take care of that bill, but it took a while to convince the hotel to not kick me out.
But but this is what I love about this is why I love the Greatness Garage because these are the things that you don't expect and that show up and that you learn and you adapt and you figure like you said like I mean what do? You got to okay, you got to negotiate, you got to call the main office, can they help out, can and again doing this all as a second language, like I am I have to acknowledge that my secondary language skills are none. I remember I learned a little Norwegian before I went and lived over there for a little bit. I knew more in the class than when I went over there because I'd butcher it and they'd say like, "That's okay, we'll speak English." And it's a comfortable but unfortunate crutch that we have when we speak English as a native language that most people will speak English and you aren't forced to the beautiful learning of all the different languages. But yeah, I can imagine. Like, yeah, so you just your credit card and all of a sudden you're saying, okay, how do you fix that out? And
Yeah.
wow,
So, but going back to your earlier question about the traveling, the first thing you notice is that planes were almost empty for the first few
no,
weeks after
yeah,
that. And uh, even then, lines through the security checkpoints that before had been very easy. It was a breeze
hmm,
to go through security before. I
yeah,
still remember when my wife and I were dating. She's from Mexico, from Monterrey. She couldn't go with me all the way to the gate when I was traveling, and she
oh
wasn't
yes,
traveling with me. So
yep,
she would take me to the airport, walk all the way to the gate, and then
yeah,
go back and go home. But that obviously wasn't the case
not
anymore.
anymore, yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, and the thing that's real so interesting is that it's not as though over the years, it's over a week, over a couple of weeks, like it's all of a sudden
yeah,
completely
I think
revamped. Yeah.
that was about a month or so that things changed radically, and
Wow.
you could see fear and suspicion in people's eyes as we
Yeah.
went through security, especially being non-native U.S.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Yep.
having a strong accent as I did back then. I still do have the accent, but not as strong, fortunately. But you could see the tension in
Yep.
uh, what today is the TSA officers, right?
Yep.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that's the same name from before, but
But you're right though, and it's like they don't want to make the mistake, right? They don't want to be the
right,
one that let the person through the da 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 da, and it's
exactly.
interesting. What I always see that's so interesting in a lesson there is that standoff kind of thing where if somebody makes and you see this in business negotiations, you see this in kind of dealing with tense situations. If we don't all keep our cool, all it takes is one person to
Oh
overreact,
yeah,
the other person overreacts, it escalates extremely fast. And I mean, we see that in culture building and all this stuff and it can destroy, you know, months of work and somebody can end up seriously hurt, so
absolutely, absolutely. You see that in
wow.
movies all the time, right?
Right.
when people
Exactly.
start escalating very quickly and nobody
Yep.
realizes where they're headed until
Yep.
something goes bad.
One false pulls a trigger on that thing and they're all, yeah, it's done. So yeah. Wow.
Exactly.
That is crazy. What else you got?
Well, that's one kind of extreme situation, but there were a few others. There was talking a little bit about my career as a leader.
Yep.
The first time I was in Mexico at the time, but the first time I got promoted from individual contributor to team lead,
Mm-hmm.
I inherited my team, the team I was part of. I became the boss, the project manager, and so my former peers became my team, my employees.
Oh.
Uh, so I started working. It's not a big team. It was probably 5 or 6 guys. Or people. And then there was one guy in particular, um, American Mexican guy, more American than anything else, but he didn't have the same cultural background as the rest of the team. The rest of the team
Yep.
were mostly Mexican or like me, half Mexican, half Chilean or something like that, or
Interesting.
Latin American at least. So, but
Yep.
this guy who had grown between Mexico and the US, in Dallas in particular, he did not take my leadership style very kindly. Um,
Interesting.
so we had several we were bumping heads for a while, several misunderstandings over, I don't know, the course of 3 months or so. And at some point, there was an issue in front of the client, some communication problem between him and I in front of the client. So we stepped aside and as we had a few words, and I said, okay, we need to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was a boss, and I said, breakfast Sunday, 8 o'clock, my place.
There you go.
And I was thinking he won't show up.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he? I mean, I'm summoning him to breakfast on Sunday
Yep.
at eight
Yep.
o'clock at my place.
Yep.
That's crazy. I wouldn't have gone, but he did. He did show up. So we had a lengthy conversation, myself trying to understand his point of view of what I was doing that was triggering him.
Yep.
And I
Yep.
was trying to present my case as to what he was doing that was triggering me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in the end, I think we arrived. I was clearly frustrated with the conversation. I wasn't getting where I wanted it to go. But at some point, I said, "Look, you know, I think we need to stop this conversation here, but I'll make a request of you. How about you help me be your boss?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know how to be your boss. That's
Yep.
clear.
Yep.
It has
Yep.
been proved that I don't know how to be your boss. So
Yep.
how about you help me be your boss?" And he said,
That's
okay, I
yep.
accept the request.
That's cool. Yeah. And what I love about that too is, and it's funny how sometimes those things show up in that frustration and that if we're willing enough to take a breath in that, all of a sudden it's like, oh, and it's you invited him to be part of the solution versus part of the problem, right? Anybody can sit on
Exactly.
the outside and throw pop shots in and complain about what you're doing, but I want to bring you in. And I love that invitation to say, hey, you help me, be the boss that you need. And I think, it's funny that you say that. I love it because it speaks so much to um, our employees didn't say anything. I know, but did we really invite them? Right? Did we really invite them into a place that said, no, I empower you to come in and help me understand what I'm not understanding, and really from I don't know, I would say a level of humility and humbleness that just says, hey, I don't know it all. So I do need you to come and, help me out here. Like help me see what I don't see and really that invitation. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I think there's a thing that we say, getting comfortable with conflict. There's a point to where conflict, if respectful, is the way through to a lot of the problems and being able to understand each other. But we got to be able to have that conversation, to be able to see that even show up going, I see that whatever I'm doing, it ain't getting through. Right? I'm throwing the same stuff at the same brick wall. Let's
Yeah.
try a different way. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there were two or three different variables that played into that conversation. One was that I realized that I had been trying to be the boss that I learned from my bosses I had to
Mm,
be,
hmm hmm
right? Or my previous bosses.
Yep.
Uh, Not to say that I had bad bosses, but I had a role model that
Yep.
wasn't working with this particular person. So I clearly needed to change that, change my practices, change my mood towards him, my way of appreciating him and his contributions to the team and things like that. So that was one thing, changing the role model,
Yeah.
the old leadership style. And
Well,
also, I mean, I'm almost 60, so I come from a different generation,
yeah.
and that also plays into leading younger people. This person is a few years younger than me, so and also he grew up, as I said, between the U.S. and Mexico, so he had already a different
Yeah.
cultural backdrop. Uh, so those things came into play in that reaction of mine. And at the time, I had not read enough about leadership styles or anything like that to know that what I was doing was, as you said, being vulnerable,
Yep.
admitting that I didn't have all the answers,
Yep.
and things like that, right? So only later I learned that that's what I did, but
Yep.
in hindsight.
Get that. Well, and I think what I love that I'm here is because that's an honest truth about leadership, right? Is that we're it's constantly learning of what it is that because like you said, you were led by people that really resonated with you, and probably one of the reasons that you accelerated or ascended into the organization and did well and performed well because that style that they had worked with you. And it's difficult because we think, okay, it worked with me. I turn and I pass it along, and it should work with the next, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And that's what makes leadership so heartbreaking sometimes is that I thought I was doing good and it had a bad impact or a bad result, a negative result, right? And we're like,
Mhm.
we did it with the right heart, we had the right intentions. It just very much fell flat on the delivery and the positioning there, right? So
Yeah, and a couple of other elements also that I just thought of those right now. I have thought about these before too, but I hadn't mentioned them yet. One is I went to Catholic school all my school years
mm,
from K through 12. And this was a very strict school with things like a uniform and how long you could wear your hair and that sort of thing. But also, I grew up through the dictatorship in Chile in
oh
an
wow,
environment that
yeah,
was very militarized and very kind of hierarchical. And
yeah,
you did obey orders from above, right?
yeah,
You were
yeah.
not allowed to do anything different.
Wasn't
So
about
that's the
artistic
kind.
expression, was it?
No, no, not much. So that was my background, my history,
Wow, yeah.
and that's what I realized later on. I brought into my role as the boss in this case
Hmm.
that I had to kind of get
Yeah.
rid of coaching myself and get rid of that over time.
But and but again, yeah, that speaks again to just that leadership space that says that reflection of self. A lot of times that's the thing too, is what we need to see and change is actually saying something about ourselves. It's about the way that we're showing up with that, and yeah, I can only imagine because it's interesting. Um, myself coming from North Dakota, when I even moved down here into Houston, and my daughters say to adults, Mr. Brad, Mr. Ricardo, Mr. Like to me, that's weird. Up north, we would never say that unless you're being a smart ass, right? And saying, "Oh, okay, Mr. Ricardo," like it would never. And so it's weird how it's very much even more the respect hierarchy structure that exists down here you weren't being disrespectful up there. You would just never use the language. And so
Mhm.
interesting how you got to integrate with that and learn that space. So very cool. Very cool. Well, that's awesome. Some amazing stories. And so the last part segment that we have is aligned intentional language. And this is really to talk about it can be the mantras, it can be the quotes, it can be the sayings, it can be the phrases, it can be the things that the words that you've used to help you create your foundation or your past or your experience that's helped you be successful. And so, what is your aligned language that you use?
Well, there are two things that I think is worth mentioning here. The first one is in our background at Taligens,
Hmm.
uh, we practice something that is known as ontological design. That
Mm-hmm.
is the discipline that informs our consulting practice. So I am an ontological coach,
Yep.
which is a slightly different school of thought from other coaching schools. Um, and that ontological design discipline is based on language and understanding language, not as a tool, but as a way of being.
Hmm.
And let me explain a little bit. So, and I'm not going to give you a class of or anything like that, but
But it's good
just two
stuff. No.
snippets
Yep.
that are relevant to this. One is if you try to think about anything, you need language.
Hmm.
So language is not just a way to express ideas or express emotions or things like that. Language is the space in which we are,
Yeah.
right? Because with whatever language we have, and that is the second aspect of language, we construct our identities when we say who we are. For example, I am so and so, and this is what I do. We invent ourselves in language when we present ourselves to an audience, like we are doing here right now,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? So we are very intentional in the language we use at work in our company because we understand that that's how we do things together. There is
Yep.
a very important book in this tradition of the philosophy of language. The title is How to Do Things with Words by John L. Austin.
Beautiful.
And
Okay.
what basically he says is everything we do in language first,
Yep.
right? Okay,
Yep.
so that is the first
I love it.
background piece of knowledge for this. The second
That's
one is
cool.
I have a lot of axioms and things that I say because of that.
Hmm.
But one thing that I learned from a former colleague of mine, I adopted that phrase that which I love. When I was stationed in Barcelona, I was the director of OD for the company. We had about 3,500 employees across Europe. And we had the VP of sales, the VP of operations, the VP of HR, and we all reported to the regional president. So my internal customers were the VP of sales and the VP of operations and so on and so forth. But in particular, the VP of sales, I learned so much from him. And he used to say this, which I love. Customers don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Hmm.
And
I
ever
love
since I
it.
heard it from the first time from him, I have repeated that many, many times and taught that sentence to as many people as I can. Because I think it's critical. I think it's part of being in business has to do with you making yourself useful to clients, not showing
Yep.
off how much you know.
Oh, and I think it's such a I love the humanity that's in that quote, right? That it really it pauses us because we always want to put the knowledge first. And I think also sometimes our ego wants to tell everybody how much we know versus making that connection. And I've got some dear people in my life that when they say hi, they do it in a way that makes you feel so loved and connected. Like there's a guy I work with named Dr. Bob Rakowski, and he always says, "Oh, happy, beautiful day," and he means it with every being of his heart, and you connect to that part, and so whatever he says that follows that, right? You're gonna listen to in a way that you probably wouldn't have listened to somebody else and said, "Hey," And so I grit what you're saying 100% there. That is so cool. Um, what I love about what you're saying too is that so in that ontological space, and I love that way of being, right? And I think we struggle as a business community that we are always feel ourselves defined by doing versus being defined by being. And I think there's a pull that we want to in our hearts be defined in our being, but we get this whether it's through our stories of origin or all the stuff we built for us in this wing of doing. How have you helped people move towards being in that place of just experiencing your being versus experiencing your doing?
Well, the way we see that is those two things are completely enmeshed,
Mm-hmm.
inextricable
Mm-hmm.
from one another. Why? Because think about who you are for a moment. How do you define who you are? You say, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a husband, I'm a consultant, I'm a merchant, I'm a banker, etc. Whatever you say you are, or whoever you say you always are in relations to another person.
Mm-hmm.
You are a
Very cool.
son because you have a father. You have a
Yep.
father, you are a father because you have a son or a child,
Yep.
right? So we're always somebody in relation to another one.
Mm-hmm.
And what
I
we
love
do
it.
in that relationship defines who we are and how we are. Are you a good father? Are you a good son? Are you a good husband? That is defined by what you do or don't do in the scope of
Interesting.
that relationship.
Yep. Yep. That's so,
So the
and
doing and
it's
the being go hand in hand.
yeah.
How could you
Yeah.
say, for example, that you're an artist if you never do anything
Do art.
artistic,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Very cool. So just really weaving that relationship together of the experience and it kind of even speaks to role identity, right? Where people say, like you said, I am that because of that relationship that I have to another person and I think I like how that even speaks to I think there's something that sat with me on that when you said that how um it's about our doing between people. And if your connection is between you and money, or you and an inanimate object, or you and an untethered goal that isn't have a place of serving people that's going to fulfill that loop, it's going to feel empty at some point. That's cool. Oh, I
The
just that
the
that showed
way
up for me.
the way I call that is being a mercenary.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
'Cause you
Yep.
can be a mercenary. There are people out there who do that, right?
Sure.
But
Yep.
their care is not about another person. It's something
Yep.
else. It's a thing.
Yeah, it's funny. I even tell other business owners a lot of times in my work, I say, a mercenary, your mercenary work is for your ego, your leadership is for your soul, and so yeah, I get that. So,
Yeah.
oh, well, awesome. Ricardo, thank you so much for just the unbelievable insight today. Greatness Garagers, you've got some depth here. And I think there's a lot of things here you can go back and re-watch parts and listen to what he's saying and the perspective and the way in which there's depth within some of them words. I mean, just the admiration portion of it, just even understanding, sitting with that for a while, you guys are going to get a ton just out of that value. So, Ricardo, thank you so much for your time and your beautiful
Thank
wisdom
you,
today.
Brad. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Greatness Garagers. Check in for the next episode, but so glad you joined us today. All right. Have a great one. We'll talk soon. Remember, action is what makes this information all worth it. If you need help figuring out what that action is, go to callwithbrad.com and we'll get some clarity and help you figure out what that should be.